Hatred. Such a strong word. When you think of something like the word hatred, you think of all the evil in the world aimed at one person or one thing or a group of things. Some people say that hate is the most powerful emotion known to man. To actually physically hate somebody so much that you want nothing to do with them and you wish the worst upon them in every way possible. Or to hate something so much, you'd spend all your time going out your way to avoid it and never setting eyes on it. However, the belief that hate is the strongest emotion would be a misconception, as hatred can easily be dissolved, like a bad case of indigestion, by use of an antacid. As hatred is actually quite flaky, it's quite a weak emotion, and sometimes it's overshadowed and converted into another stronger emotion, love. Love is actually the strongest emotion there is. In retrospect of hate, it's one of those things where you can feel something 1 second, and then a slight turn of events, or some situation or some word spoken, can actually make the thinker and feeler of hate suddenly drop into a sense of reasoning and understanding, and maybe even eventually love. Let me give you a bit of a soppy example. Once upon a time, 11 years ago, I sat in a bar with some friends on a visit from another part of the country where I lived, just sitting back to visit the old stomping ground. All of a sudden I was approached and accosted by a young lady in a bar. Tall, beautiful, big breasts, look of a porn star, or so I thought in my shallow mind back then. She sat down and then started to talk, and unfortunately, because of the fact that I was considering myself to be a quite strong-minded young gentleman back then, with every word this woman was throwing at me, be it a bit of gentle banter and a bit of humour aimed in my direction, I actually felt insulted. I didn't know how to deal with somebody who was used to using such smart words against me, particularly when I considered myself to be almost superior in my English abilities, as it was the one and only lesson in school that I actually enjoyed and prospered in. But these ladies sat there and delivered so many jibes and hits at my appearance, from my tight trousers, tattoos, and even aiming fun at the expensive designer top that I was wearing, that was actually designed to look like it was made for a 5-year-old. Yes, she made my night hell, and I remember walking away from that bar with another friend in tow, and I said the words to him, "Jesus, I absolutely hate that woman in there, she's awful." But the one thing I was to learn was that this woman actually took the time out to almost stalk me. She made her presence known to me on a couple of occasions through friends, that those stabs and those jibes and those little digs at my appearance were actually her way of showing affection. However, as time went on, I suddenly found that this woman was a very warm-hearted and affectionate person who'd do anything for anybody and help anybody out at the drop of a hat. And also the sense that she used to drive 250 miles every week just to come down and see me, to spend even just a few hours with me, suddenly showed that she had the commitment and patience of a saint. So, 11 years later, here I am. I'm married to her, I love her, and she's given me a wonderful little daughter. And that's how the turn of events can move, because it only took a matter of time before that hate turned into love. Because love is the most powerful emotion, but hate doesn't stand up to anything. How many times have you ever walked into your school dinner line, took one look down at the Brussels sprouts, looked at your friend and said, "God, I hate those things." It's a strong word used in a lot of unnecessary ways, and it doesn't stand up. But when you think of the weakness, how many people do you actually find die from hate? If you look at somebody and say, "I just don't feel particularly nice towards that person, I hate him," do you suddenly drop down dead because of that emotion? No. But the nasty thing is, love can actually take people's lives in that sense. And you might think that sounds bizarre, but if you take into account an old couple who've been together for 70 years, married with a strong bond to each other, never to be broken, never strayed, never left each other's side, spent every minute with each other. Unfortunately, by the grace of God, one has been divided from the other one and taken to the afterlife. This leaves one on its own, and the sorrow and love that that one person who's been left on earth on their own, in the house that they built and grew up in together, has suddenly taken them to the afterlife themselves. And people say it might have been down to a medical illness, but everybody deep down knows that they died because of a broken heart, because the love was so strong they couldn't live without that other person, and just wished as hard as they could to be taken away so they could spend the rest of their eternity with them in heaven. So, away from the morbid and the sad, let's go over to the plain facts. Bullying. Now, bullying is a subject that lies particularly close to my heart. You see, I myself at school was bullied quite strongly. And the story goes that my family, unfortunately, were all born with gypsy blood, me included. That meant that wherever we laid our hat, it wasn't our home. We felt the need to move from house to house, town to town, all the time, never feeling settled, just needing to move on. But unfortunately for a kid in his early teens, this can prove quite devastating, as you never quite know where to settle. You make a bunch of friends and then you move on. The worst part about it was, by the age of 14, I moved to a school where units were already formed, and all of a sudden this out of place looking 6'2" kid walks in and finds himself towering over all the other adolescents. This was an immediate threat to these kids, and one of the many best forms of defence is attack. And what the bullies tended to do was plume out their feathers like a peacock when he wants to feel intimidating and large to other birds or other predators. And they walk over and start giving you a seriously hard time. But you generally find it's not coming from one person, it's coming from a group, 2, 3, 4. You don't know what to do, you don't know how to deal with it. Unless you're quick-minded and fiery and you do the right thing at the right time, it's going to last with you forever if you don't react. But you see, I was never a reactor, and even though physically I was capable because of my size and the proficiency in martial arts that I had, I never quite had that confidence to do anything about it. So I tended to just go within myself and put it to one side, lock it away and never tell anybody about it. And that's probably the worst thing you could ever do. You see, if anybody's ever bullying you, the most important thing is to tell people about it. But be particular who you tell. Sometimes telling your own friends can spark off the wrong reaction. Tell somebody who's more than close to you. If you're lucky enough to have both parents, tell the one you feel more comfortable you can tell anything to. Or if you don't have both parents but you live with your grandparents, tell them. But what is bullying? What forms does it come in? Well, it comes in many forms, believe it or not. And it happens day to day in different scenarios. Some at work, some at school, everywhere. But the one thing you need to understand, and I'm not defending them, is bullies are actually weak people. But the backbone of it lies in the fact that maybe they're bullying for a reason. Maybe they had an underprivileged childhood. Maybe they were abused, sexually, verbally, physically. Or maybe they just grew up without anything and feel angry at the world for the card that they were dealt. This is one of the problems that you find with bullying, is it can always be sparked back to something in the past. Well, certainly 9 times out of 10. There are obviously a few isolated situations where that doesn't count. But one of the most common forms of bullying in this day and age, unfortunately, is online bullying. And this is the one that I experience most day to day. Not to myself personally, but I see it happening to other people. Particularly on this channel thing where I flick over from channel to channel and I read comments. And I see people getting into wars of words with each other. But you see, the one thing you need to understand about a bully, what they're aiming to do is to get a result, be it whatever form it comes in. And all they want to do is get that rise. They want you to take the bait so they can hook you and reel you in. You see, if somebody posts something on your channel and they say something like, everything about this is rubbish, I hope you die, or something stupid like that, at first it can prompt a kind of angry response out of you and make your skin crawl. So what do? You type something back. Oh, shut up mate, what do you know, blah 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 blah, F this, F that. That would be the wrong response, because this guy's got exactly what he wanted. Because he's got the war going. Because he's fine, Jack. He wants this war of words with you as he sits there comfortably and safe in his mother and father's house, perched in his bedroom behind a computer screen, under the watchful eye of his One Direction poster smiling down upon him. So take the subtle approach. Send something back like, thank you, God bless you, thanks for the view, or counteract an evil negative with a very strong positive. Because it's like I said before, hate can be completely overcome by love, and I'm not trying to be all John Lennon or anything like that. So tell him that you're thankful for his comment. Read him a poem. Roses are red, violets are blue. You hate me, but God loves you. This will annoy them more than anything, but because the response has been so random and not what they were expecting, they won't know what to send back to you, because they failed to snare you, and that will upset them more than anything in the world. Because the one thing a troll loves, it's to be fed. So just don't feed them, guys. Anyway, I hope this has been helpful to you in some kind of way. It's a subject I've wanted to talk about for a while, so hopefully it's helped. I'll see you later, guys.